Very good. Okay, thanks everyone for coming back for this last session of the workshop, the session with the Coq development team. So yes, let's welcome Matthew. Please, Matthew.
I'll go. So this is going to be a quick recap of what happened in the Coq ecosystem in general in the last year, with some focus on the Coq 8.14 and 8.18, 8.15 releases. I'm going to present the Coq platforms, which actually extend the Coq releases with all packages that are compatible with these versions. It point at current questions around the development of Coq, and then we'll have a Q&A with the other Coq developers that are present here. Okay, so 8.13 was released last year, about at the time of PoqPL' 2021, I think. So this schedule starts a bit later at the first Coq platform that was containing this the version 8.13.2, which was released in April. Then we had 8.14 feature freeze in July, first release in October. So that was a bit unexpected. We took a long time to release this version due to some blocking issues that were really hard to pin down, especially over the summer. So the 8.15 feature freeze was just the month after, so it was a quick release. We tried to get back on time. 8.14.1, so the first patch release for 8.14 was released in December, and we have just released the latest version of Coq, 8.15. So what are the features of this? The new features of these two versions? You can look at the changes files, of course, to get detailed changes, what might break for you, or what were the enhancements, the deprecations of commands, and removals of commands due to deprecations. The most salient change in these two versions, actually in the kernel, so in the actual theory of the system, is a change of the case representation, which is more efficient and closer to the user level syntax. It avoids some unexpected behavior you could have when you were, for example, selecting occurrences to rewrite in a goal where you had match constructs, which could select occurrences that there was no way to print or see, which so these occurrences would appear in the context of branches, for example. And this also fixes an incompleteness bug in the type checker related to cumulative inductive types, which could result in subject reduction failures. So we also have now a proof in MetaCoq that the current system with the updated case representation is actually enjoying subject reduction, with the usual caveat for cofix points. There's a separate native, Coq native binary now, if you want to natively compile a file that you already processed without native compilation. So there's no separation of the two things. That's also handled by Coq makefile, so by the usual building infrastructure. And I think Dune is probably going to use this as well. There's been improvements to type classes, canonical structure resolution, and notation. So for type classes and canonical structure resolution, it's mainly about the scope of instances that one can write and what kind of keys can be used during resolution. Omega was finally removed after being deprecated for a few versions by LIA, which has also been improved a lot and handles natively a lot of new types and constants. LTAC2 has been extended with new APIs that allow you to manipulate inductive types, so to get an inductive type declaration from the environment and produce some tactic or terms depending on that, and also an API for pretty printing, like a printf variant for LTAC2. There's been a lot of standard library improvements that I cannot list in exhaustiveness, but I just want to point out there's a new signed primitive integers library that is, so there is this signed integers library along with the unsigned primitive integers library, so you can distinguish them. In 8.15, a big change that actually might impact a lot of users is that we fixed the apply with tactic with respect to renaming of arguments. So in the past, when you did apply with, the binders in the lemma were alpha renamed to not clash with the current goal names, which was certainly a bad decision at the time. So it no longer does that, but you might be relying on it because you followed the error message that apply was giving you, and you use the alpha rename binder name in your script. But there are ways to fix this in a backward compatible way. So this is explained in detail in the changes. Auto tactics have been fixed in many ways by fixing the implementation of hint unfold, which is not actually doing what it's supposed to do. So hint unfold is supposed to unfold the constant just if it appears at the head of the goal, and it was not doing that. And we are using discrimination nets more consistently, so you can see a bit of improvement in performance in some cases. There's a quite important change in type class resolution, which now handles stuck constraints depending on the mode declarations that you have on your classes. And it uses a best effort mode for resolution that can result in much easier to read error messages. So basically, if the constraint has matches the mode of the class and can be solved, then it will never appear in a user message, in a user error message. So the error message will only be about constraints that really cannot be solved. Not all the constraints at the beginning of the call to type class resolutions. Also, this perfects the backtracking semantics of type class resolution in presence of modes. There's a more consistent locality attribute support. So local, global, or export is an attribute that you can use on most of the commands where it makes sense in a consistent way. Another big improvement is the ability to do selective import when importing a module or a library. So you can choose the names that you want to import from a library, but also full components. So you can import just the notations from a module, for example, or just the hints, or some combination of names and components. And there is no visual LTAG debugger that is available in CoqID. I'm going to say a bit more about this. So we have these Coq releases, but what you actually should probably look at more than the open package for Coq is the platform associated to Coq and to each Coq version. So the idea of this Coq platform is to distribute coherent distributions of Coq packages that work together well. And the idea is to make it easy to install this version. So you have the Coq platform actually produces scripts that are used by your CI to produce artifacts like binary installers for Windows, Linux. There's a snap package for each platform, and there's also OS X packages. And these scripts are customizable. So if you want a specific package version or a combination of Coq with some packages and whatever tool you want, you can really start from that and easily get to an installable image. There's a charter explaining the goals of the platform by Michael Zogtrap. So as I was saying, the release of the platform and Coq are kind of synchronized. So you get a platform for a specific release code version about 1 or 2 months after the package release on GitHub. So from the user point of view, it's probably best to just wait for a month and look at the platform installer or the scripts. If you are a library developer, then you can just test against the platform instead of I mean, it's supposed to be a consistent set of packages that we expect users will use in preference to other methods of installation. So it's a good idea to test against this platform. If you want to be part of the platform, what it requires is being available to tag specific versions of your libraries that work with the platform. If you're a plugin developer, so if you have ML code as well as a regular .v files, then it's a good idea to put your plugin to ask to put your plugin in CoqCI so that we can synchronize releases more easily. There's a CEP about this release process, which details everything. Okay, so what was in the platform at the beginning of 2021? Well, we had Coq 8.12, I think. I cannot find the link anymore for this platform version because we had a lot of other versions still since. With about 20 packages. So September of 2021 was release of the platform with a lot more packages included in Coq 8.13. Plus, as alternative, so it's the first platform where you had multiple alternatives. You can also install Coq 8.14 plus a beta set of packages for the packages that were compatible with 8.14, basically 1 or 2 months after the time of its release. You also have the ability to try 8.14 with Visual LTAC Debugger Preview. So it's not part of the main branch of Coq, but you might want to try it. And we also had alternatives with 8.13.2 with a previous package pick and 8.12, so that you can also help porting basically by if you want to be able to run 2 Coq processes to see where the differences are between the 2 versions in parallel, which can be useful sometimes. Okay, so last release was this January with Coq 8.14.1, and as alternatives, you could have Coq 8.15 with a beta set of packages, and again the previous version 8.13 if you want to do porting or check compatibility. All right, a bit of mentions of the things the team is working on in general. So I don't know exactly what everyone is working on, but these are things that are currently discussed among, in particular, the engineers attached to the Coq development. There is a big effort around the UI support by Maxime Denès, Enrico Tassi, Gaëtan Gilbert, and Emilio. In particular, Maxime is working on the VS Code plugin
Okay, it seems like. Oh, you're back, Matthew.
I'm back. What happened?
We lost you.
It's at
yes, it's a lost connection.
Okay, sorry.
I think you were saying that Maxime was working on the VS Code plugin.
Yes,
was the last thing we heard.
Okay, I did not say much more, I think. Let me go back. 8, 9, 11. Yes. Okay. We are also there is also a project to make LTAC2 viable replacement or a serious replacement for LTAC, so improving the user experience with it in particular and making it as good as LTAC so that we can try moving to this target. There is this CEP on implementing rewrite rules by Theo Winterhalter. We are still looking for an interested implementer for this, but this is in the minds of many. I'm particularly interested in integrating support for inductive types in the system. There is work on diff small inversions to improve the pattern matching compiler of Coq to handle small inversions. So to be able to invert values in index inductive types in more cases than what the current algorithm can do. There's also a proposal to change the theory in a quite deep way by adding eta reduction and contravariant subtyping to the theory. And there's been a big experiment that I think I've reported on at last CoqPL on adding size typing, which is something that comes up often as a feature request. And there's been work by Chan, Lee, and Bowman to try to implement this as a purely internal tool in the Coq kernel, so to infer sizes and definitions and try to resolve the set of size constraints that are generated by a definition automatically without any user intervention. And they found out, and you can read the paper about it, it's pretty interesting, that it becomes very impractical even to just type check the standard library of Coq to do all this inference in the kernel. So it's not impossible to implement size typing, of course, but it will require annotations and will not be completely backward compatible with the system. At least that's the current state of affairs, it seems. Okay. Some news about the development. So we have integrated the bug minimizer that Jason developed during his PhD thesis. It's available in the continuous integration process of Coq, and which allows us to minimize bugs automatically, which has been really helpful recently. So I want to thank Jason for that. There are Docker images if you're using CI that you can use to avoid recompiling Coq on your end that are maintained by Eric Martin Dorel. You can find them for Googling for Docker CI Coq, I think. As usual, there's the Coq community project has been integrating more projects under its umbrella. So they are maintaining projects that are useful for the community. I encourage you to participate, submit your project, or try to be a maintainer for a useful project like that. I'm listing the usual day-to-day communication and discourse forums, but you probably already know them. Something you might not know is that there's a Coq team webpage on the website now that presents all the developers of Coq, maintainers, and previous developers of Coq, if you want to see the faces behind the names in the papers that you can read about the history of Coq. And we've been working lately on building a survey that will be available soon, like in the next 2 weeks probably, about the usage of Coq that I encourage you to fill. Finally, I'd like to announce that there's a winter hackathon that's going to happen online between February 15th and 17th, organized by Emilio and Carl. That's probably going to be geared towards power users or people developing plugins and developers. But I let Emilio say more.
Well, thank you, Mathieu. Well, we hope to have a bit of courses target towards the Coq system. So as you can see in the announcement, but we hope to have at least a couple of introductory sessions for people that has never worked with Coq itself. So yes, we hope. For example, there is also Ali, it's organized by Ali and me, and well, we coordinate mainly because it's organized by everybody in the team. On the team, and yes, so it's of course for people interested in the implementation of Coq itself. But for example, there is going to be a back party. So I think, for example, for the back party users interested in helping triaging bugs and trying to improve the Coq has right now, how many bugs we have? 4,000, 3,000. Okay, too many. so for sure, I think we hope the event is open to also to a bit less technical users, but people indeed is focused towards improving the Coq system itself. Anyways, the information is on the wiki, so I encourage people to register. You don't have to come every day. You can come on your own, and will be a bit self-organized by everybody there. And you can also propose an activity or demand request an activity, and we may try to find somebody on the team or on the community to fulfill the request.
Thank you. And it's Q&A time. So if you have any questions that you would like the development team as a whole to answer, don't hesitate.
So there are already a few questions online. Maybe can you see those, Matthew?
feed. No Q&A. I lost my panel. Okay, it's here. Can some
questions to the screen, just in order of number of upvotes?
Yes.
Thank you, Adam.
I don't know if it's good for someone to read them.
Can someone give a bit more detail about notation improvements in 8.14 and 8.15? They are all described in the changes, so there are really various improvements about so custom entries in the grammar that are better supported. We're working off numeral and string notation so that you can attach them to your types. Support for them for primitive types, for example, native integers.
I don't know which change it was, whether it was in this release, but sometime recently, I think our team begged enough that we got syntax extensions so that you can have normal Coq identifiers actually be elaborated as strings in the syntax of your embedded DSL. That's been lovely.
Identity string, finally, yes. Yeah, so all these changes are linked from the changelog. Adam, thank you. So can you turn them off globally to avoid TCP growth? Features like inductive types. So we actually did not think about this for the design of this feature. It's pretty hard for inductive types because basically it changes all the elaboration in the kernel of inductives. So we are moving from maps to faults. Basically, we make the later inductive types in a mutual inductive block depend on the previous ones. So having two code passes for this would be, a lot of duplication. But we can surely deactivate them on the source side. And another part of answer to the question is that the goal is to also integrate them in the MetaCoq formalization, so that we have a good idea that the code that we're introducing in the kernel respects at least subject reduction and all the substitution principles that you expect from your theory and so on.
It would be nice to have independent Coq checkers that correspond to various common subsets of the core proof language, and therefore people who don't need fancy stuff would literally not be running the code that is complicated just to support those features. But
yes.
I know you guys have infinite engineering resources and you'll get right on it. So I need say no more. Okay. Next one.
I think so. I think Coq Platform should be the preferred way for non-expert users to install Coq. Yes. You avoid all the open mess on Linux or macOS. On Windows, this is probably the only way to do it correctly. To have a consistent environment, if you're giving a lecture, you want to that everyone has the same version and that it works right out of the box. I suggest, yeah.
It should be usable by people who have practically no computer literacy.
Is the Coq platform delivering its contents by source only? No, the Coq platform does not deliver source codes. So generally, it delivers an environment in which you could compile new code, but it delivers binaries and compile series for these binaries. Yeah. So you can really open the package and start doing your proofs in matcomp in no time. Yeah.
Oh, another question popped up. Great.
What is the current set of non-experimental supported frontends for what?
He said for Coq.
Oh, IDs, you mean?
That's right.
I I don't know what to say. I don't know the answer to this question. Anyone want to comment?
Well, I think support is a bit, but I think we have proof general, we have Coq ID,
And
that are
VS Coq is
reasonable, and
kind
VS
of
Coq. VS Coq is still a bit experimental, and we've got a lot of plans for it. Of course, then you have some tooling like Electrion seen this morning. And so yeah, but VS Coq, I consider it experimental, but we have big plans for it. We are working on that. So let's see for the summer for the Coq workshop if we can make an announcement. Actually, this could become another alternative, but needs still a lot of work. So I think these three, right? Yeah. All the others I know, Enrico may know, but all the others are maintained. So yeah, you have Coq ID, VS Coq, and Proof General. Yeah. And Beam. Oh, and the Beam we are testing. The Beam, how it is called, Cocktail, no? Well, Cocktail is totally supported as far as I know. It's just I never use it, but it's tested and has a nice test suite. So I think I'm not sure how experimental it is, but it's my impression it works full feature.
Yeah.
I still think Coq ID and Proof General are ahead of the pack. But I've had master students work only with VS Coq and not complain at all about missing features.
I guess that's for Emilio.
Well, right now, unfortunately, we are very short on manpower because, for example, so there are plans indeed, but I cannot keep a pound because actually, well, this is a long story. I don't want to go now, but actually, Dune was very interesting. We learned a lot. I like to thank Dune people and Dune developers because they really teach us a lot of things that will be useful for Coq in the future. On how to improve build time and incrementality and persistence of proof checking, etc. But indeed, so there are plans, but unfortunately, this depending on the manpower is a bit unbounded. I don't want to make a promise right now. I'm very busy writing papers, so I don't have a lot of time for improving this. But in the Coq this hackathon we plan to do in February, I plan to do a session. So I'll hopefully try to, if somebody's interested in Camel, I think is try to work together a bit and try to get a bit of help. But yeah, but this is the editor support. There's been a bit refactoring. I like to compare to what happened in Isabel years ago. So there has been a big moving from this terminal base to this server client thing. So this is still ongoing in general. So OCaml is more mature. For example, if you check how OCaml is working these days with this OCaml LSP, all this, and how it integrates, is quite interesting. But in Coq is going to take a while, I guess. Like.
Mm-hmm. What are the plans on canonical structures and type classes? I don't think we have. I mean, I cannot talk for canonical structures. I don't know what you would like to see improved in the canonical structure system, for example. And for type classes, the main work is on trying to make the proof search more efficient and more predictable. So using these modes in particular allows you to restrict the search space quite importantly. And there are other improvements to the interface that type classes give you to declare hints and how they are processed during resolution. So in particular, there are many cases where if you had the first pass of filtering the goal by a syntactic pattern before trying to unify with your instances, you could get a big speed up. So there is work in that direction as well. What progress is happening on the various big standard libraries? So we are still in the Bazaar model, I think. We've focused more efforts, right? I mean, Maxime Denes had started an effort on stdlib2 and trying to impulse a work towards unifying libraries, but it didn't take on very much. And Maxime also redirected his efforts towards VS Coq. And he also had time taken up because he participated in the work on the COVID application in France. So that took a bit of time from our main Coq engineer. I don't know what else to say.
It's stalled. It's stalled. It's stalled.
Installed?
It stalled.
It's stalled. Okay, yes.
So, question from audience. I also wanted to ask about STD Lab 2. So, what can we say heavy users contribute? For example, implementing a monad for STD Lab 2.
So there is an stdlib2 project that you can look at. From what I gather, the thing was stalled on actually finding what were the right primitives to start the library with. So there is a lot of possibilities using setoids or not, using type classes or canonical structures, and so on and so forth. If you want to help, I don't know what would be better than come and talk with us at a Coq call and tell us what you would like to do for stdlib2, and we might find something some way to coordinate. But right now, as Yves was saying, the project is stalled. I would suggest that, what I see is actually that people use xlib or stdpp or some other extension to the standard library made independently by users. And I would rather like to see users come together and try to find a way to build a unified library. I don't think we are the best place as Coq developers of the system to build this library. Question about Coq native. The Coq native assumes Coq libraries on which file have been first compiled to the native files. Is there any easy way to compile the whole standard library so that other projects can use Coq native? I don't know the details so well to answer this question. Can anyone else answer this? So I think it's a build system problem that you're asking about. Like if you try to natively compile a file B, which depends on A, which was not, then your build system should be able to figure out that it has to build A first.
I suggest Sanjay you take this problem to Sulip because as far as we know, people is using it okay. There is quite a few core developers that use native and it's working good for them. So just go to Sulip and we'll see what the problem you have. What's the problem you're having?
It's true that there's an installation problem. You really need to have compiled everything that you may depend on with the native option. So there's a strong need in this respect.
Yes, and if you're actually compiling packages through OPAM, you need to install a specific variant of Coq, which will force every other package to install its own native version. Yeah, this problem was already considered. Is there any work on improving the performance predictability of rewriting? So it depends on which rewriting you're talking about. Of course, I suppose you're talking about setoid rewriting. And in that case, well, it's mainly work on improving the way we can control type class resolution that can help. There are projects also to try to rewrite setoid rewriting. A resolution tactic for the constraint generated by setoid rewriting in other settings like LP that might have an influence. I think that's all I can say. And you yourself, Gregory, has developed a way to do set rewriting using reification that should outperform whatever we try to do in the shallow embeddings that we have in Coq of trying to resolve these constraints using unification. So I don't have any more details or ideas how to improve that.
All right. Is there any other question, comments? Maybe in the room?
There are no more
Oh,
questions in the room.
there is one new question, it seems. What do you think of the interface file proposal?
I think it's interesting. So we've discussed a few times about having interface files in the system. I think Pierre-Marie has a big objection to it, but I cannot remember it. Pierre-Marie Pedro has a big objection to it, but I don't remember it. But certainly, it would be interesting to discuss that at a Coq call with other Coq developers. Yes.
Yeah, I also think it's very interesting. We chat a bit in private, and you mentioned things you're trying to solve with this interface, maybe different things. But for sure, I think it's it looks like all the problems you're trying to solve are valid problems. So for sure, it's very interesting, and it will be great to see how we can make it a reality.
Yes, and there's a comment in the questions by Benjamin. I think it's a very good idea. Maybe we can add a couple of those people that we're discussing as speakers, if they are remote.
It seems that so there's also the classic and constructivist dichotomy, the discrete and non-discrete mass dichotomy, and so dichotomies pile up not only technically but also in what do you want to do with this library? Yeah. I don't know, Yves, do you want to share your thoughts?
It's been it's been puzzling me for years to understand why the work on libraries was so diverse and pulling in many directions. So I can't really elaborate. I have the impression that a lot of people would like to use Coq exactly as they would use Isabelle, and that's perfectly possible to me. And it's true that there's also a tradition of purists who would like to rely only on the constructivist library. So I can't really elaborate on this. We are also trying to make an internal effort to look more at libraries for teaching mathematics, with a discussion between INRIA researchers on the topic. And it's practically sure that this kind of library would turn to a more classical view of mathematics than a constructivist one. So as far as I'm concerned, I have no no attachment to the constructivist approach. But I think the remark was made also during the CPP conference. Why would a mathematician want to see a constructivist proof? Very often it's just because such a proof contains more information. It just tells more about the problem and how to solve it. So this is why people keep being attached to it.
Well, I'm sure we can take it literally that I just clicked the button to mark that question answered.
All right. It seems like there are no other questions, and it's actually a good point to stop here. And thank everyone for participating and making CoqPL a success, despite all the difficulties. People who are there in Philadelphia and people who joined us remotely, and also thank you to the panel, to Matthew, to all of you guys for this nice discussion.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank Benjamin and Amin for organizing this workshop and leading it with such diligence.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Should we give Benjamin a chance for last remarks? Is he micable in there?
Of course, can we do that?
Yes, here I am. I would like to thank everyone who participated, the speakers and panelists from the last session. Especially, I think it's been a great day. I have learned a ton.
Yes.
I've enjoyed everything that happened, and I look forward to the next as the Coq community proceeds onward and upward. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.